me, hold on here. And give the presentation so we can explain everything to you, or you can boo and be disruptive and we can leave, okay? I mean, there's two things. And I'm going to ask you respectfully, because let's go over some ground rules here. Listen, I know there's a lot of emotions that are running. There's a lot of rumors that are going on out in the neighborhood. What we would like to do is stand before you tonight respectfully and present to you what we are looking to propose. When we are done with our presentation tonight, which should only be about 3 to 5 minutes, because I don't want to take too long, we will have you line up here to ask questions and or comments with respect to what we are trying to accomplish. Okay? And then and please, this could be a long, frustrating process if you continue to speak over people who are trying to speak. If you try to speak over me trying to give you the information, all I ask is for your respect, okay? I'll do the same for you when you ask those questions and comments, because it's very important for you to understand what is being proposed, and for me to make sure I give you the information that is needed for you to answer those questions and or concerns. So again, I know I stressed this 3 or 4 times. This is the only way we're going to have an effective meeting, because the effective meeting is going to be make sure we give you the message so you're able to make an informed decision of what's being proposed instead of what someone else is telling someone else out there. So if we can at least respectfully understand those ground rules, we'll be able to get on through and be able to answer your questions, okay? So let's do it that way, and I promise you everybody can speak individually. We'll give you a mic, ask those questions and comments. We'll be able to go through this fairly quickly. So before I start, I just want to at least go through some of the ground rules. Otherwise, this meeting won't be as much of a success for you. Because if anything, the goal for us tonight is to provide you this information. So with that being said, what I'd like to do is just get into the proposal and some of the facts for what we want to present to you tonight. The first thing that everybody knows, but I need to go through some general facts. Okay, some of the general facts, as you know, Century Communities owns the golf course out here. Okay, they, as you know, they own it. They do not manage a golf course. There is another management company actually called, ironically, Century Golf. Okay, it is not affiliated with Century Communities. So you have Century Communities that owns the golf course. You have Century Golf that manages the golf course. Okay, and those two entities are not related. As a matter of fact, the Century Golf Management Company is from Houston area, from the Houston area. As you know, and it's been stated as my understanding, is that the golf course has been up for sale for approximately a year. Okay, and I'm sure, as you know, another fact that Century Communities is not in the golf course business. They do not want to be in the golf course business. They'd like to get out of the golf course business, but they own the property. And in the up to about the last year or so, they've been out there marketing the property to sell the property for the golf course. What has happened over that time is what Century Communities has realized by talking to individual different parties who may be interested in purchasing the golf course. There are some hurdles with respect to the golf course itself. So what Century Communities has been looking to do over the last year is find and explore different alternatives or avenues to be able to sell the golf course and preserve the golf course and move on with respect to the development itself. So the proposal that we have before you today, we believe is the least impactful to the community. And what we believe is it's, in the end, somewhat of a win-win situation here. And so what I'd like to do is explain this proposal. I'll go through it fairly quickly at the thought process. And then what I'll do is turn it over and we can line up and start asking those questions and comments. The first thing that I want to make known to everybody that there is no applications that have been filed or submitted with Clark County. Okay? What does that mean in layman terms? Is that Century Communities has not moved or advanced these proposals that we're discussing with you, because largely, in fact, that they just wanted to reach out to the community to explain the situation and the avenues of what they're trying to explore. So there's no applications that have been submitted. There have been no plans outside of what you see here. So what we wanted to do is have a voluntary neighborhood meeting, which this is, and obviously notice the community so we could explain what we're doing. On the far right, on my far right, which is your far left, you'll see the exhibit here, which is the Rhodes Ranch golf course. What we want in the Rhodes Ranch community, actually. What we wanted to do when we sent out the notice, because we understood, and I know this, I've done this for many, many years, is when you send out a neighborhood meeting notice, people get the notice, people start spreading rumors and spreading some inaccuracies, and a lot of people get emotionally riled up. So in this instance, when we said we wanted to have a neighborhood meeting, we wanted to show you, you see the two yellow areas, and all of you have seen these maps, of what the what Century Communities would like to propose for development purposes for single-family residential homes. On that notification, it also told you, or explained to you, that there is, and you should know this, that there is no deed restriction that requires a golf course to be a golf course and stay as a golf course today. So what Century Communities would like to do to preserve the golf course is come up with a deed restriction on the golf course, which would restrict the use of the property to only stay as a golf course, okay? So that's part of the win-win that I'm going to now get into the weeds a little bit so I can explain to you the process and the thought process of what's being proposed. So with that being said, the first part on the exhibit that I'm going to go through is as you come through the gates up here in this area, there's a development area that we've cross-hatched or actually colored in yellow. It's about 2.2 acres of property, and you've seen that on the map itself. Although you do not have this exhibit or this exhibit here, what we will do is make available here in the community center. We will, if it's tomorrow or the next day, we'll make sure everybody will provide enough copies so you could have this exhibit and this exhibit over here that I'm going to go through. So the proposal is essentially on Rhodes Ranch Parkway and Pine Shores Parkway, which as you can see on the bigger map, in this area it's approximately 2.2 acres of property. What Century Communities would like to do is build 9 houses in this area here. And by building the 9 houses, it'd be between hole number 3 and hole number 4 on the golf course itself. And with these 9 lots, what they would be selling is their sanctuary product. Their sanctuary product is the brochures. I believe it's the, I'll call it purple brochures that are out there that Rick is showing you. The sanctuary products, the price ranges go from anywhere from about $385,000 to about $455,000 base price in that area. And that's before options, etc., before you add some additions onto that. So the thought process is, once again, in this area to have 9 homes in this area, which would be the sanctuary products. The second part of the development would be up in this area here, which is about 3.6 acres of property. And this is off the corner of Pine Shores Parkway and Rancho Maria Street. In this area here, once again, it would be the sanctuary products that Century Communities is proposing to sell. And you have 23 homes located here on this portion of the development of the property itself. So essentially, when you total everything up, you're going to get approximately about 5.8 acres of property to be redone with respect from converted from the golf course to single-family residential. On the flip side of that, what the proposal is what I already explained on the top of the presentation, is that there would be a deed restriction that Century Communities would like to offer out to the association. What that would do is would restrict the remaining portion of the golf course to be prohibited from doing single-family residential and commercial uses on the property itself. The reason why we look at this as a win-win situation, and I'm going to be closing up here so you can get ready to bombard me with a lot of comments and questions and so on, but I think it's important so you can understand the message here, regardless of what you've heard out there. There's a lot of golf courses that are closing. There's a lot of golf courses that financially have not been able to make it, and there are a lot of repurposing going on. Silverstone, Badlands, Legacy, Sienna, you name those golf courses. one of the things I hope you can appreciate, regardless how emotional the emotions are here today, is if anything, there is no proposal to close the golf course whatsoever. Century Communities wants to preserve the golf course. In order to preserve the golf course, they look at this as trying to subsidize the golf course with the development in the areas that I just proposed to you. With subsidizing the golf course there and doing a deed restriction to protect you, it becomes a win-win situation wherein then you get a golf course operator to come in here, purchase a property and operate it as a golf course subject to that deed restriction, which then I have, at least standing up here, is this is one of the, actually not one of the best, but it's probably the best proposal that is going to be out there, that has been out there, that you've heard about all the other golf courses, because no one's trying to close the golf course. No one's telling you that we're going to take up half the golf course and develop it. As a matter of fact, there's an instrument that's Century Communities. The instrument is a deed restriction. It's willing to record on the golf course to your benefit to ensure that you're going to get the golf course there. I think that's a win-win situation. You may respectfully disagree, but that's okay. So before I start here and start lining up, because it's going to be hard to stand up and start shouting questions. But before we do that, so I please understand respectfully, we don't have to have these kind of meetings, don't have to do this stuff. I understood. I know there's 400 something people in this room today. I expected it. We expected it because this is your property. There's a lot of things that are going on as far as the rumors, as I mentioned, but we just wanted to give you the facts. One last thing on the deed restriction. Actually, there's 2 points. I'm sorry. The golf course with the changes on hole 5 would change from a par 5 to a par 4 course. For those who are golfers and understand the game of golf, the golf course would change from a par 72 to a par 71 golf course. And then the last bit that I forgot also is on the deed restriction. Somebody may ask about the deed restriction. I don't have a document here today to tell you what that deed restriction is. What we want to do is open it up and work with your the board, your HOA board, and pick and have the board help pick a group, a subsequent group of neighbors, homeowners, to sit down with us to talk about the deed restrictions for the document itself. So in case anybody has questions of why there isn't a deed restriction here, if you guys are saying you're willing to do it, the thing is, why spend the time, money, and effort to give you something that I don't understand what you're looking for that protection? So one of the nuances here as we move forward is we would like to go and sit with a neighborhood group of 7 people or whatever to go ahead and talk about that deed restriction. Okay? And then one last thing, because I know how these meetings go. As these things go, this is probably going to be a couple hours long of a lot of people that have a lot of things to say. We will have additional neighborhood meetings, okay? You may not want to come see me or Rick again. No matter what it is, we will be continuing to reach out to you one way or the other. This is just the beginning of the process. But the first thing that I wanted to do with the beginning of the process, so you could hear it from myself and Rick, of what these facts are, okay? So those are the facts that I just gave you. I'm going to be able to turn it on over with a mic. And if there are some questions that we cannot answer tonight, we will get back to you and answer those questions, because once again, don't always have all the answers as we go through this. So if you don't mind, and when you speak, if you just state your name for the record and then go on from there, and then we'll go and start answering questions.
Hello, test. My name is Al. So 2 questions. Number 1 is, do you need us to sign something for you to do this?
No. What we would like is, the question is, so we'll make sure, is do we need anybody in the Homeowners Association to sign any documents for us to do what we're proposing? The answer is no.
All right, part 2 is, I think, honestly, because I'm a real estate agent, I think it's okay, it's a good deal for us, but we also want to throw something else, it's just me putting this in there, is we want to take control of our own HOA as well. I think that should be part of the deal.
Okay, so as I was preparing for this meeting, Rick informed me we were talking on Thursday, that which I'm not aware, but I'm aware of the HOA issue to be 100% controlled by the HOA. If that is one of the things you want to discuss in here, I'm not an HOA attorney, okay? But I am aware of the issue. I've seen an email blast that went out to everybody about taking over the HOA. If that is something that you want that to be a part of this discussion, we'll look into it, but I'm aware. But I cannot speak on it. I don't know the facts and the history. All that I know is that that's an issue that has been brought up.
All right, that's all I have, but I think that's a deal if you can get it done.
Okay.
Hi, Bob. My name is David. My wife and I just moved here 2 months ago. And we bought the home like 3 months ago. I just heard you that you were selling this golf ranch a year ago. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Within the last year, I'd say 9 months to 12 months.
Okay,
it's been up for sale.
that's fine. The reason my wife and I bought it, we came from Hong Kong, which is pretty far away. I'm retired, we retired, and it was because of the golf range. And why was I not told you were selling this? If I known you were selling this, I would never have bought it. And that was one question, and a whole list of them. I don't know how much time I had to go through my list of questions that will really suck you in, after I finish them all. But anyway, please answer. Why was I not told?
I have no idea what you bought, who sold you, what the disclosures are. But the bottom line is...
Oh, come on. Give me a break, Bob. Come on.
All right, listen. Again, listen. I need some respect here. Don't speak over. I'm trying to give the information, all right? Here's the question, all right? He wants to know why he was not notified. There is no duty to notify that something's for sale. What the duty is in your CC&Rs, and you look, I believe it's in section 18, if I'm not mistaken, it talks about the golf course. When you purchase your home, it's a recorded document, and I'm not going to state it verbatim, but I'm going to paraphrase it, is that the golf course is not restricted for a golf course. You could read it. You don't have to believe me. You could read it. You're all very well-educated people. You will have other people take a look at it. What the CC&Rs are fairly clear that the only way there could be a restriction, if there is a restriction, is if there is another document that is a subsequent document or a separate document recorded to put any restrictions on the golf course. So the golf course has never been guaranteed. I know you don't like that. You're going to boo me for it. I'm giving you the fact. We could agree to disagree, but that's a fact, okay? I'm not going to stand up here and as I said, please don't try to shout over me. Come over here and ask the questions and we'll go. So that's it. I cannot answer why someone didn't tell you the golf course is for sale. I mean, we could go back and forth all day long, but I'm sure a majority of the people, or the good portion of the residents here, have been told that the golf course has been for sale.
All right. As I said, I have quite a number of questions to ask you. Let me come to the second question. You said you had almost like a month selling this piece of golf course and was not successful. And now you're slicing this bit out, making a 72 hole to a 68, 69 holes. What makes you think you're able to sell it? If you can't sell it, what are you going to do with it?
As I already mentioned, again, please keep quiet. It's just out of respect. I keep using the word. I'm going to stand up here and answer all the questions as long as you want, okay? I'm fine with that. But I'd like to answer, and actually respect for the gentleman here who's asking the question so I can get through it. At the end of the day, as I mentioned in my presentation, I didn't get really into the weeds on this portion, which is the goal has been to sell the golf course from day one. It's for sale. Century Communities is a home builder, is not a golf operator. They're looking to sell it, and the best way to sell it and to keep the golf course, instead of standing up here and saying we're going to close the golf course because it's not a performing asset, we're sitting here saying we're trying to make this a win-win situation. So we've gone through a variety of avenues. We believe that this is the best avenue to have a public meeting and express to you what we think is a win-win situation. So the goal is to keep the golf course open.
No. I think that's fine.
Okay, you know what, though? What we're going to do is what I want to do is limit one question or two per person, because otherwise it's going to be 20 minutes per person. Okay, listen, we got to ebb and flow through this. Listen, we got to ebb and flow, please. You got to, many other people I want to ask.
But I don't think I've answered me, though.
Yes, I did. You know,
I asked you.
We'll go to the next one, because what else do you want?
Please answer this.
Go ahead.
What happens if you can sell it within a little bit of time, and what happens to the golf course? And what are you going to do with the remaining of the golf course after you're sized off?
As I said, the golf course is for sale. They're looking for somebody to come in and purchase it. Making this type of proposal will make it more appetizing for somebody to come in to purchase the golf course. Okay? So let's go next.
All right, I can hear the boo from the audience.
All right, let's go. Good. Let's go. Hey guys, hey, you know what, sir? Actually, listen. Hey, you know what, sir? Maybe you can leave if you want to yell and scream, because I'm sure there's about 200 other people that want to ask questions, okay? Look, I got to maintain some control here. You want to start shouting at me? Listen. All right, there's somebody that's going to be rational in here to understand this process. So let's go. Come on.
My name's John. My name's John. And I have a few questions. Like, how many permits have been issued for the master plan community?
So the question is, how many permits have been issued for the master plan community? It's roughly about 3,700. We can look at the number.
Outside the gates? Outside the gates. Everything is master plan.
Outside the gates?
That was part of the original documents from 2008 when they redid it.
I don't have that information. We'll give you that information.
Who's going to redesign the golf course and make it a profitable golf course if you take away these holes?
The current ownership and management.
So you're not going to hire somebody like that? There was a championship design golf course originally, and now you're going to hire some Joe Schmo to design it?
Right. The question is, what are you going to do to the golf course once you make those modifications? I'll let Rick answer.
Yes, we've been working for a little while now with a nationally renowned golf course architect out of the Houston area. So one of the concerns was you can't just chop up a golf course and make it still playable. A big part of this was designing the holes so that we still have the 18 holes, 71 total par. None of the holes are going away. Only one shortened to a par 4.
And 2 quick questions. What are you guys going to do about all the extra traffic on there? Because there's already an abundance of traffic coming in, and the gates are not fun.
So the question is about traffic. The traffic is what you have today. It's very minimal of adding 32 homes to the entire traffic. Go ahead, next. All right, next. You want to move on?
One last one that I had.
Go ahead. Hurry up.
What were some of the other options that were considered that didn't work as well as this?
I cannot hear everybody.
What were some of the other options that were considered besides this for the golf course?
The options are to close the golf course. The options are to develop more than what you're proposing. There are numerous other options out there, just like any other golf course proposal that you've seen throughout the Southern Nevada.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
My name's Tim Schulte, and I live on a crooked putter on the golf course, which I paid a large lot premium for, I will note. But in any event, my first question is the golf course now profitable? I take it it's not, which is why it's up for sale.
Correct.
And reducing it from a 72 par to a 71 par makes it not a championship golf course anymore. Is that correct? Which
I'm not going to go and start splitting hairs on that. It's not necessarily correct.
If it's not profitable,
okay,
now,
I understand what your plan is.
By reducing it and making it not a championship golf course, you will not attract as many corporate events, etc., because it's not a championship golf course, and it's advertised as a championship golf course. So it will be less saleable and presumably less profitable which may, in the next few years, means you want to develop the entire thing because now it's not profitable at all.
Okay.
I would like to, first of all, remind people why we have such skepticism. We have asked at the last multiple meetings if there were any plans to develop anything on the golf course, and we were looked at directly in the eye and said, no. Hola, look what we're looking at. So there is a lot of distrust, and there's a lot of question about the integrity of Century Communities in terms of what they've done, because this seems very deceptive. The second thing I'd like to know is, where's the consideration for the homeowners who are going to really be impacted? This is not a win-win. I like the peace and quiet outside my back door. I'm one that's going to have a year of construction right outside my back door. Well, you put these little however many homes in between Cascade and Rancho Maria. What about me? What about the other homeowners? What about the ones who paid premium lot prices and they get to look at brick walls? Brick walls. I mean, really, you've got to think about that. Are there other lots you could have looked at? Are other sections that are further behind its golf course that doesn't impact the beauty right when you come in? The people who are going to have to live with this in their backyard going on for a year? Look elsewhere. If you're going to do this, go in the back of the course and find something else. Go back to that drawing board. I'm sure you can find it. We are going to be impacted. This is not a win-win. And the one other thing I'd like to say is, has Century Communities really thought about the impact of social media? Because this group is not going to sit back quietly and not let Las Vegas know some of the values that have been shown by community. You're not putting us in.
Hi, my name is Oscar Ocampo, and I moved in here 5 years ago. I'm a retired real estate broker, salesperson for 30 years, licensed both in New Jersey and Nevada. And one of the reasons why we moved in here, when we thought about it 7 years ago, we looked at the golf course because we always wanted to live in a golf community. It was rated or ranked number 5 at that time. And then after we moved in, I think 2 years ago, the magazine ranked it as number 9. And today you can check any ranking, and Rhodes Ranch golf course is not ranked whatsoever, even at the cheapest rates, you know, that you have to pay in order to play in this course. Now my question is, do you really think that after building those several houses, that you're going to have a better prospect of selling the golf course?
So the question is the proposal that we have, and I'm going to try to repeat the questions, because one of the gentlemen said they can't hear in the back. So the question is, I'm going to paraphrase, is this the best proposal that you can have in order to sell the golf course? And the answer is yes, that's what we want to put forward, is because what we can do is we can subsidize the golf course, and then in turn, we could also let the golf course operator owner know that there is a deed restriction that's recorded on the property also. So at least you know what the parameters are for the sale of the property.
Again, I beg to disagree, because the ranking of the Rhodes Ranch golf course has been going down. And I really think that if you add those two developments there, it's going to go down more, and you're going to have a harder time of selling the golf course. Not only that, that was my other question, what the lady was said about social media. I know you have all the power to do whatever you can, because you could do it without the approval of the HOA. However, social media is very, very powerful. And if all of the residents are going to do the same thing and trust Century Communities in the social media and tell them what we have done to this community, I think we're going to win. I think this group is going to win. Thank you.
as far as what you do with the golf course, I don't necessarily agree with it. Sorry. I don't necessarily agree with how you're planning to do the golf course and the additional houses. But I can't say that I am opposed to a deed restriction. My question is, and I don't know if you've looked at, is for how long, and will it bind Century?
So the question is actually a very good question about the deed restriction. The question is how long is the first part, which we don't have that proposal for how long. That's why we want to sit down with an HOA group itself. And as I explained in the beginning, before you start chuckling and believe that this is a game, it's not. As I said, we didn't want to put that proposal forward because we don't know what the thinking is. Once we know what the thinking is and have those discussions, we'll be able to put that down. So that's part A to answer the question. Part B is it would bind, yes. The goal here is, and those, I'm sure there are some other attorneys in the audience here, is you don't want to put the power on us, which is Century Communities, to determine when and not the deed restriction could be enforceable. You want it to be a beneficiary party, which is the Homeowners Association, to have teeth in the document. And again, those are discussions that we may, hopefully, can have on the side with the association group to have those discussions. But the goal is to put teeth in it. You can't stand up here and say you're going to do a deed restriction and then walk away knowing that you can pull the deed restriction off the table at any point in time. That's not the game.
So to paraphrase, just to make sure I understand, these two developments would be the last two things you could do to the golf course?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes.
My name is Will. I live in Palm Trace. It's 99. I think not just Century 21, but Century Homes. We've lived here a long time. We've dealt with Jim Rhodes and all that BS. So builders, we don't have much time for it, generally speaking. She kind of stole my thunder a little bit. Unless the deed restriction is permanent, or switched from R2 residential, the golf course that is, to a golf course, then it's not worth anything.
No, and so if I could paraphrase, the question or issue or concern is once again to make sure that if there's any document that's agreed to, is that it actually has teeth, where there's protection, where you don't have to come to this meeting another day, another year from now or whatever, and keep dealing with the issue. I understand that. We discussed that. And if I'm in your shoes, I'd have that same concern too. I get it.
A lot of builders are asking for 20-year restrictions. This golf course, this community, it's restricted to 9,000 homes. 9,000 homes. You've sold 3,700 in 22 years or so. This would be another 10, 15, 20 years. You put a 20-year restriction on it, it's worth the paper, it's worth toilet paper.
Okay.
Nothing. The first gentleman actually had a good point too, was unless we control the association, then we have nothing. Because the way the CC&Rs are written and the way the state of Nevada law is, until 90% of the homes are sold, the builder has entire control in this property, and we have nothing. So there has to be some control granted back to the homeowners.
No. Thank you.
Good evening. Pardon me, I didn't get your name and your position in Century Communities.
My name's Bob Gronauer.
My name is Tony Andre Johns. I didn't get your name.
I represent Century Communities, yes.
I beg your pardon?
I represent Century Communities.
Yeah, I didn't get your name and position.
Bob Gronauer. I am their consultant attorney for Century Communities. I represent developers in Southern Nevada.
All right. I've been a real estate broker for about 30 years. And I've sold property all along the beach towards Malibu. I moved here in 2001. And I've lived here for 7 years, sold property in Rhodes Ranch about 20 years ago, on and on. Do you live in a golf course community, sir?
Excuse me?
Do you live in a golf course community?
No, I actually live outside of Silverstone Golf Course up in the Northwest, so I live outside of it, but no.
I don't know if you realize, all the representatives of Century Communities realize that Rhodes Ranch, the reason people buy in Rhodes Ranch, because it is in a great position, location, it's better than Queens Ridge, which is overrated, better than Canyon Gate, it's close to the 215, close to the 15, close to the Strip and the airport. And when doing what you guys are going to do, and you're saying you haven't sent it in to the city for plans and all that, am I right? County. Or county?
Correct. There are no plans that have been submitted to Clark County to move forward with any development. This is something that we wanted to propose before we submit anything into the system.
I see, but you also said that we don't have a say and you can move forward in building these houses. Am I correct?
No, I did not say. There's a gentleman up here. The question is do you not have a say in the process? You have a say in the process. The question that the previous gentleman, one of the first guys that got up here, asked the question, does a homeowners association have to sign anything to give us permission to move forward? The answer is no. Okay, I'll make that clear. But I also want to make it clear that you have a say in the process whenever that process starts, okay? So I'm not standing up here because I want to make it clear. Okay. You have a say, everybody has a say. That's why we have this process, so I want to make that clear.
Thank you. And you realize, as you said, about 400 people here. There's a reason why there's 400 people here, with this golf course being cut up. And someone said before, yes, it is a competition golf course. That's one of the attractions that people buy in Rhodes Ranch, and the beauty of it. So if you're going to build more houses, and like it was mentioned before, as it is, we have a problem for residents banking up all the way up to Vaughn's on Durango. And also another question, why is the third lane on the exit towards Durango blocked for parking of security cars?
I don't have that. I could find that question and answer that, but I can't answer that right now.
Because it was originally built by Jim Rhodes, who I know very well, and that was built for an exit going straight on Robindale or turning right onto Durango. But it seems to be closed since Daniel Holmes took over.
All right, I'll look into that. Go ahead.
Okay, that's all I have to say. And last but not least, when I bought a house here, when I moved in 2001, Party Homes gave it over to the residents once they finished building. Someone mentioned before it would be a great idea if the HOA is handed over to the residents as a president, vice president, treasurer, etc. And I think we can save this place. Thank you.
My name is Eric Lockler. I've lived here for about 9 years. Full disclosure, I work in the golf business, and I do business with the Rhodes Ranch Golf Club, amongst many other golf courses here in town. So no one wants this golf course to stay around more than I do. But before you boo me, I want you to hear me out. First of all, being a par 72 golf course as opposed to a par 71 or a 70 makes no difference whether or not it's called a championship course or not. Okay? You're just using room. This is not a championship golf course. It is a golf course. Championship golf courses are used as a marketing tool to make them more enticing. There are golf courses that are used on the PGA Tour right now that are par 70. There are golf courses that are used that are par 71. There are golf courses that are used that are par 72. It makes no difference. Okay? So, with that said, I want this golf course to be here. It makes money for me, amongst other golf courses. But to give you some, sir, with respect, to give you some clarification, the Legacy Golf Club is still in existence today because there is a deed restriction on that course that says it has to be there for 50 years from the time it was built. So it'll be there for 27 more years. Silverstone is just going to sit there, and what's going to happen with us is the same thing that's happening to Silverstone. Because all that guy that bought that golf course he's got more money than everybody combined. He's just going to let it play out until we run out of money or die. That's That's what's going to happen if you keep pushing it, okay? I don't like these people any more than you do. This guy right here lied to me at the last board meeting, okay? I don't like it, okay? I asked him flat out if there's any discussions about changing the deed, and he told me 3 weeks ago, no. But you just said just a minute ago that, oh no, we've been in discussions with, changing the golf course. It's a bunch of crap, okay? But people, use your brain, you're intelligent. This is our best option. It's not going to affect the amount of people playing this golf course by changing it this little bit. And I play this golf course a lot. Let it go. Be happy that we're still going to have the golf course. Now you can do it.
Okay, I'm going to just make sure everybody can hear me. So just want to make sure I confirm earlier you actually answered Bob, your name, right? Are you a consultant of Central Community? Or you are actually an employed by Central Community?
I actually I'm an attorney. I represent developers in Southern Nevada. I represent home builders, commercial, industrial, gaming. I've been doing this for about 21 years. Was involved in the negotiations of Rhodes Ranch, the amendment to Rhodes Ranch. So I've been a part of development in Southern Nevada for a very long time.
Okay, all right. So I think just one comment and no question. If the Central Community really care about this community, I'm surprised that their executives in Central Community really should be here talking to all of us. So that's just one point. But one question I have is, earlier you said that land is owned by Central Community and the golf course, and they can proceed and decide what they want to do. Is that true or not? Or it require all the residents of us to be in agreement, to be part of the process?
Yeah, so the question is the ownership of the golf course. The ownership of the golf course is owned by Century Communities. Century Communities, as the owner of the golf course, can make any request for land use entitlements on the property. Land use entitlements meaning coming in and asking to change anything on the golf course itself. Any landowner that owns property like this has that right to do so. The goal for the landowner in this case, and should be in every case when you have these type of land use issues, should be to be in a forum like this and stand before a couple hundred people here and try to work out a scenario that could be a good scenario, as I said earlier, hopefully something that's a win-win here to keep the golf course and keep things moving. So that's the goal.
Okay, all right. So I think taking your statement, the land is owned by the Central Community. In fact, all the residents here, each one of us, doesn't matter which year we bought the property, we came here, we look at the eyes of the salesperson, including Central Community salesperson, when they said, this is a premium lot, this is a land, you pay this, you get the community as it built. So in each of our neighborhood, every neighbor we have, each of the property we bought, built in our property price when we bought it, there's a price, there's a premium we paid, which also based on the actual layout of this community, of the golf course. That's why we all enjoy it and we bought the community here. So by default, each one of our property owners in this community, people who bought the house here, is a part, own this land, own this community. Otherwise, the salespeople in Central Community, wouldn't you call them become misleading people when they buy the property, when you see they don't own any of the land?
I didn't understand your question. I was listening.
Question is, we need to be part of the decision.
Can you go back by the podium?
Yeah, it's a good conversation distance.
Yeah.
I'm not threatening.
So the question is...
He's afraid.
Okay.
I don't understand. I didn't hear you. I didn't hear the question.
Okay, you want me to repeat my question?
I didn't hear your question, okay? I can't hear. I'm trying to listen, okay?
Okay. All right. My question is, each of the homeowner here, doesn't matter which year, each of the homeowner bought the property, right? When they buy the property, the salesperson, Central Community salesperson, or somebody before Central Community salesperson, when they sell it, they sell the value of the community, of the golf course as it's built, and they sell the fact each of the lot has a certain premium associated with each lot. It doesn't matter where the lot is listed. So by the fact that they sell the property as the value defined, and many salesperson actually told each of the person bought the community that this is the golf course, this is the lot going there, you're going to have this view, or you're going to have this community. By default, each person is part of should be part of the decision process.
Respectfully, I'm trying to understand the question. If the question is the value that people paid on the golf course, is that...
Paid the golf course, or paid in this community, paid to buy this, buy into this community. That's okay.
What she's saying, we all have a vested interest, as when we bought the property, we paid a premium because there's a golf course here.
Okay, so I got it.
We're losing our interest when you change the aesthetics of the golf course.
Okay, so I got this. So the question and comment is that when you came into Rhodes Ranch Master Plan Community, that there was an understanding that you bought into a golf course, a Master Plan Community. I understand, I agree with you, okay? The next layer is, though, the property that you're disclosed, okay? There's a zoning disclosure document. The property, and there's a couple, somebody mentioned it in the questions, or in the comments. The property, the golf course, is zoned R2 for residential development, okay? Your CC&R documents state that the golf course is not guaranteed unless there's a separate instrument or document that is agreed to put restrictions on it. That's what you bought, that's what you negotiated as a value. Again, I wasn't a part of those discussions, respectfully, but that's what you bought into. You bought into a golf course community that had property on the golf course zoned for residential and had disclosures in its documents to tell you that that is not guaranteed. There is no deed restriction on the property that restricts it to a golf course, and there's no zoning on the property where if it was going to be guaranteed, you'd have a deed restriction, and in those green areas, you wouldn't have R2 zoning, you'd have open space, or PF, public facility, which is open space for the golf course itself. So there are disclosures outside of your initial conversations that you had to purchase your home. So go ahead, next.
Yeah, so follow-on question, just to clarify that, is when Central Community, someone sold one of the lot with the premium, with the golf view, and sold everybody this, what is the premium they are selling? If anybody's backyard can potentially subject, or anybody's neighborhood can potentially subject to building another block of houses. So if a Central Community salesperson sold all those properties, told every one of them whether they bought a golf course property or non-golf course property in the community, a value for them to buy, that in itself, doesn't that form up a view of Central Community salesperson is presenting something misleading, or they're presenting something actual value for the Central?
Again, the question is about a conversation that you have when you purchase your lot. again, I'm not a part of those conversations. I don't know what the representations are, but the fact of the matter is, even if you're told you're living on a golf course, there are additional documents that you sign in those disclosures that tell you if you have a house that backs up to that open space, it's zoned residential, and there's documents that state that that is not guaranteed to have a golf course. So I've answered it 3 times, so I don't know how other way to answer it. I think we agree to disagree, but I'm trying to give you the information that's there.
And when you said that
Can we move? Because there are other people here that would like to talk.
if the golf course is losing money, should you hire a better golf course manager versus try to build a house in the golf course?
We've been looking at all avenues to save the golf course, as I mentioned earlier. Go ahead, sir.
Talk in the mic.
I'm sorry, I don't need the mic. Bob, I'm not here to give you a hard time, okay? My name is Victor. Lived here for 2 years now. My wife and I want to retire here. We understood there was a golf course. That's why we bought. Okay? A couple of questions I have. Century owns the golf course. What is the current value of the golf course?
I don't have the question is, what is the current value of the golf course? I don't have that information.
Hang on. Now, when we purchased the house, we received that CC&R booklet. We received it about, 5 days before our house closed. And I read that stuff in there, and I understood that, but it was too late to back out. I could have bought anywhere. But you're not following the CC&Rs by changing the aesthetics of the golf course. I can't change the color of my house. Why can you change the golf course? If it's zoned residential, it's part of the residence.
They control the HOA.
Now I understand Century Homes wants to build, and they're in the business of building homes and making money. We all understand that. But by changing the golf course, you're changing the aesthetics of the community. You're oversaturating the area. There's too many homes. I know you have developments over on the other side, on the south side. I'm sure Century Homes can purchase property outside of Rhodes Ranch and develop that and make $1 billion. Why target the golf course?
So the question is why are we looking to convert a 5.8 acres of property from the golf course to residential in that area? The answer is because what we're trying to do is subsidize the golf course to keep it as a golf course and come in here and then provide you with a deed restriction, which those who live and back up to the golf course, that is going to be your document of a guarantee that you will not have any other residential development down there or behind you.
So Bob,
I can't hear.
Bob, okay, in regards to that, do you have any other proposals that don't sell off the golf course?
The question is there any other proposals that don't sell off the golf course? Well, to answer the question again, Century Communities is not in the business to own and operate the golf course. So if there is someone that would come by to purchase the golf course, that obviously with a deal that both sides can agree on, Century Communities does not want to own the golf course.
Right, I understand, and you're their attorney. You don't have anybody here to represent the golf course and show us the value of the golf course so that we as a community can maybe put in a purchase plan for that said golf course.
Go ahead.
In regards to that, you're the attorney for Century. Why aren't any Century reps here?
So 2 questions. One is, the gentleman's asking about the value of the golf course. I'll get that information for you because I'll talk to the brokers, get the information on the value of the golf course. The second question is why isn't there any representatives from Century Communities? Rick Barron is with Century Communities, so we do have a representative from Century Communities here.
Okay, then this question is for you. If this proposal goes through and you build those homes there, people stop going to the golf course, we're losing the aesthetic. Are you going to compensate us for the loss of equity in our homes?
I'll answer what Rick just told me is, look, what they're trying to do is add value by adding the deed restriction that you got to guarantee that the golf course is going to remain. That's the goal here, is to try to preserve the golf course. Again, we may agree to disagree, but that's the answer you asked. That's the answer.
Okay, so do you have any proposals that don't take any property from the golf course? In other words, can you leave the golf course alone and come up with other proposals or other buyers or other plans before you destroy the golf course?
So the
I understand it's for profit. You guys are in it for the money. I used to do sales. I'm retired now. I have 2 college degrees, none of them being in law, but I understand what's going on.
So the question is there any proposals out there that does not affect the golf course entirely? Currently today, as I said, is over the last year up to a year, there's a proposal out there to sell the golf course as is. The reason why we're here today is because based on other conversations with potential buyers, we're trying to subsidize and figure out how we can make it more marketable to sell the golf course and to ensure that there is a restriction here that the golf course is going to stay. So that's the answer to the gentleman's questions.
Instead of building homes, how about building a country club and offer memberships? That would increase the value of the golf course and not change the aesthetics. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. One question is I want to get those other guys. You already asked 8, but I'll stay here all night to answer your questions, okay?
I respectfully follow your instruction because I was the first one to get up and I was allowed to ask one question. However, and I got behind the line.
Okay.
And now people have been talking like there was no tomorrow. But anyway, I'm happy to hear that you're an attorney. I'm also happy to hear Rick is representing Century. Now, getting back to my original question, how would you like to face me in court defending Century that you were selling this property 12 months ago when I walked into your sales office and bought my house 2-3 months ago and you did not tell me? How would you like to defend that? That's one. And number 2 question, you answer it. Number 2 question, you mentioned that you have not made this application yet. Is that true?
2 questions. One is you don't comment on any threats of litigation or any litigation. That was his first part of the threat of litigation. Number 2 is, I want to make it clear again, his question is there any application that has been submitted in Clark County to move forward with development? The answer is no.
All right, here's my question. Then what are you doing today? I wonder why you're doing today. Asking our permission or telling us, or what are you going to do?
So the 3rd question that he has is, what are we doing up here today? I'll explain, because maybe I wasn't clear enough when I was doing my initial presentation, so I apologize. The goal here today is to have a voluntary neighborhood meeting to discuss with you what the proposal is, what we believe is a proposal to preserve the golf course and allow us to subsidize the golf course in the time being, to give you some peace of mind by coming in with a deed restriction and giving us the ability to be able to sell the golf course.
Hi. My name is Zohan Wang. I just have 2 questions. I'm a very technical person, so I'm very technical questions. So you built 32 houses in these 2 lots, right?
Question is, are we going to build 32 homes on the 2 areas? The answer is yes, is what the proposal is, yes.
How big is those lots, like number 18 and 19?
Minimum lot sizes are 5,000 square feet. We can give you the exact dimensions, because as you can see, each of... You want to watch your mic move back? If you move back, at least we can hear that. Okay. So the question is, actually, it's a very good question, and what we will do is put the lot sizes on the lots itself, but minimum lot is 5,000, but we'll give you the dimensions for each lot. Okay. And your question was for 18 and 19?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, right now, all those lots on the golf course, they are like at least 7,000 or 8,000, right? So now you're building those small lots, small homes on the golf course. Is this what you're going to do? Does that match?
The question is, these are going to be the same homes that we're currently building, yes.
But that is sitting on a golf course, which is neighborhood to those bigger lots houses, the bigger houses, which is 8,000 or 10,000 square feet.
Yeah, I would have to...
They're just side by side. Is that what you're going to do?
So the question is the lot sizes of the existing homes versus lot sizes of the proposed, and I don't have the existing homes, each of those lots.
Oh,
we can give you the comparisons.
You can see that. Exactly.
Right. All right, I'll take your word on it, but we'll
ask this guy. What's your name? What's your name?
Again, could you go to the podium, please? And his name is Rick Barron. He's with Century Communities.
Rick? Yeah. So he's from Century Community, right?
Yes.
So can you answer, is this what you're going to do? You're going to build small houses on the golf course now to sell for more money? And which is besides the 10,000 square foot houses? Is that what you're going to do? Exactly?
He's talking about outside.
People listen to that, right? So it's going to be a very mixed community with small houses and bigger houses side by side, and build small houses right on the side of the big houses. So how's that community going to be look like? People think about it. Yeah, it's a shipping house. Okay. Second question. I think you are doing it all the wrong way. Okay. You said you're going to build these 2 lots, going to build those houses to compensate and to subsidize the golf course, so you don't need to, so the golf course can keep running, right? Is that true?
So the question is are we looking to build the homes to subsidize the golf course? The answer is yes.
Okay, so first of all, by building that, you destroy the whole building and the flow of the golf course, because if everybody look at the golf course design right there on that paper there, every lot, golf course, every lot is open to the next one with openness. Right now, if you put those houses on pot 5, which basically totally block it, and also on the first wing, and when we're coming in, you take that corner away, which is also block where I think it's pot 3 is coming into there, right? So, which means you basically destroy the whole golf course, beautiful flow and the coherence of it, which everybody agrees, I think, that's why you are here. So, once you destroy it, as the other person was saying in front of me, this will the golf course is going to be less desirable and less desirable. There's not less people going to come to play with it. So it's going to deteriorate, so that will not save the golf course, basically. How can you save the golf course? By destroying it? Can you answer this question?
Yeah, so the gentleman's question is, how can we save the golf course although we're destroying the golf course? Respectfully, we don't believe we're destroying the golf course. Destroying the golf course is removing all 18 holes. Do not want to remove the 18 holes, as I said, is we're trying to save and preserve the golf course by doing a deed restriction.
I don't think you're right, because you destroyed it, you make it not
sir,
going smooth.
The point is made. We're going to respectfully agree to disagree. There's
so follow what you are saying. You're going to preserve it, so by selling those houses, selling those lots. So the question is, how long you're going to preserve it by selling those? The money you can get from there, whatever the millions you get, how long you can preserve that golf course, use that money? How long you expect to?
Our hope is to preserve the golf course through the deed restriction on the trade-off of what we have proposed.
But what the deed restriction will do for that? And you already tried to destroy.
Out of respect, I don't know how. All right, can we go to the next guy?
If you only can keep it for a couple of years, that doesn't mean. If you want to do the deed restriction, we do it now. We should take off the HOA and do the deed restriction.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is David. I'm a new resident here. So before I ask my question, for your information, Century is a public traded company. So if we want their stock market, boom, you know what should we do, right? So my first question, you mentioned the deed restriction many times, but you do not have it with you today. So when can we see the deed restriction, and when will you build the house? When will you enforce that deed restriction?
So again, the question is, this is about the 5th or 6th time I'm answering the deed restriction, but I want to make sure it's going to be clear, okay? The deed restriction, the reason why I did not come tonight with the deed restriction is, as I told you, we wanted to get the neighborhood input before we put the deed restriction together. The fact of the matter is, rationally, if you think about this, is somebody coming forward and saying we're going to do a deed restriction to ensure that the golf course is going to stay should be a good thing. To answer the question here, to why we don't have the document, we would like to meet with several neighbors who represent the group to find out what those things are to put in there to ensure that the deed restriction has the teeth and addresses the issues.
So you do not have a timeline for that?
The follow-up second question is, what is a timeline? Actually, that's a very good question from a timing aspect. The way I look at this is from the information that we're getting. Can everybody please keep quiet? Thank you. I appreciate that. So the question, which is a very good question, is where I wanted to wrap up at some point in time. When we do, is a timeline. Like, where do we go from here? Excellent question. What we would like to do internally is take the comments and the questions that were asked and the concerns that were addressed. By doing that, to come up with an answer sheet, and in the meantime, to meet with members of your HOA board to get input to see who they can reach out to in the community, that we can sit down and have a subsequent meeting to address deed restriction concerns and issues. After that meeting or multiple meetings, we would like to come back to the neighborhood group, the entire association, and then make that presentation at that point in time with respect to the deed restriction points. And then the timeline from there is, it will depend on what goes from there. But in the short-term plan is to take all the comments and feedback we got tonight, going to put those together, try to figure out what we need to do to address the issues that we believe that are rational and legitimate things that we should address. We will go meet with the HOA board or board members and ask us for help to reach out for neighbors who can sit down and help craft positions or points. And that should be because you got the holidays, and believe me, I understand. I do this for a living. I understand from Thanksgiving through January 1, the world shuts down. Okay, so I presume there will be very few meetings during the holidays, but probably sometime after January things will pick up. It's just the way business goes, and so that's kind of the timeline I'm looking at out loud.
So my final question, if we are not quite satisfied with your deed restriction, and you control the HOA board the board is controlled by the developer, so how can we get our voice heard? What right do we have?
That's another good question here is, one of the first guys that stood up tonight mentioned something about you want control of the HOA. You don't want Century Communities involved. That is the first thing that I wrote on the list, about 6, 7 things that I heard that I want to make sure we address. I will guarantee you one thing. You may not like the answer, but I will guarantee you we will address this and figure out how to address the question with respect to putting this into the deal. My understanding from the first guy and listening to the applause that this is a very big issue, and I'll look to address this issue along with this. I didn't want to, but I got the feel and I know what I need to report back. Yes.
My name is Carol, and I've been here for 4 years. My husband and I moved here. And so my question is, you said that you were going to take all the questions and the remarks, and that you're going to take them back to the powers, whoever they are. And are you recording this conversation? Are you recording all of these?
No. The question is, are we recording the conversation? Answer is no. Are we taking notes? Rick is here, been taking notes. I've been taking notes on certain things that have come up, and we will be addressing those things. And just for comfort, if there's something we miss through the process, we're fine. One of the things that I didn't mention in the beginning, we're going to probably try to come up with a website / like a contact point with the HOA. So if you're like me, you'll come up with questions after tonight's meeting. And if you come up with questions after tonight's meeting, it's important for you to reach out. So I want you out here to reach out to us. So we're going to have another point of contact in case you can't get your questions answered tonight.
So probably I have 2 questions. One is that let's assume that you develop these 2 plots, and then the golf course gets demoted or whatever. I don't know anything about golf. I've never played, but I'm here because of the whole ambiance of living in Rhodes Ranch. And my question is that once you do that, and then the golf course is less desirable, we already have a management company that probably is not utilizing the golf course to its extreme degree, because it could be a gold mine for corporations, etc., if it was marketed properly, and if the management was maybe up a few notches. So did anybody ever think that maybe they might go that route so that it could be a money maker? I mean, I think golf courses typically make money versus lose money. So I'm very, I don't understand that. So that's my one question. My second question is, assuming that you do this, and then you give us this wonderful deed restriction that says that it's going to stay a golf course. So if nobody comes to play golf, they're not going to be able to pay the water bill and all of the sundry charges. Is it just going to be a weed pot? It's going to be rodent infested, which I understand there's already a rodent problem, which some people may or may not know. But what's our guarantee that you're gonna protect what you leave us with?
All right, 2 questions that she asked. I'm going to try to paraphrase. The first question is, have you been in touch with management of the golf course, and have they come up with any other plan to try to make more money than the money that you're making today. Just like any other golf course in southern Nevada, golfing is going down regardless what you think. Okay, there's those of you who are golfers know the statistics better than I know this from dealing with 3 or 4 other golf courses in southern Nevada along with my partners. Golf is going down. Golf rounds are going down. By going down, that means less people play, less money is being put into golf. What people are trying to do, people, management companies and owners, are trying to find ways to be creative to save the golf courses. There are some instances about ripping out a certain amount of turf, making other designs, improvements, and so on. So those are things that have been discussed. Those are things that are always on the table of trying to figure out how to cut down the expenses, but those are always in the conversation itself. But for any golf course, that's one of the top issues right there in the overhead is trying to cut down the amount of turf and the amount of water that you water the golf courses itself. The second question that you have,
what is the golf course going to end up?
Okay, yes. The second question is one thing is I can never guarantee anything with let me back up as you're saying that. The question is how can you guarantee the golf course will always stay a golf course, okay? The one thing that I'll tell you and anybody who knows all this stuff, there is no guarantee about anything, okay? At the end, let me explain this to you, okay? The closest thing you can get to a guarantee, and I understand this on the deed restrictions, dealing with this on both sides of the aisle, the closest thing that you can get to a guarantee is dealing with the deed restriction that requires that golf course to stay as a golf course, okay? That's the most important thing, and the other part of it is making sure you have effective management to run the golf course at a profitability level where it maintains the golf course itself. So that's the balance that you deal with, but the most important thing that you always want to deal with on a golf course, and even if you move into another golf course community one day, is you want to ensure that you have the deed restriction on the property that you control to ensure that it's a golf course. That's the thing that you want when you move into a golf course community. That's what you don't have today. Okay? And so that's why we'd like to provide that to give the comfort level and try to preserve the golf course.
But what you really didn't answer my question is that, you know, if you can't make it manageable now and it changes, you're going to demote it. What's going to make it profitable? The amount of money that you make on 32 homes isn't going to last you, but how many years, right, in profit? So now we have a golf course that's got a deed restriction that says can't change it any other way, but we can't keep the water, we can't keep paying all the bills, and so it goes to just growing weeds and it becomes a big eyesore. So what is our guarantee? I know there's no guarantees unless something's written out, but that golf course is going to be protected as a viable golf course.
And again, the answer to the question again is what's going to be the guarantee to protect the golf course? Again, it starts with the deed restriction to sit down. Once we can talk about the deed restriction itself, we can sit down with what I call the homeowner association group and have those discussions with the protections on the golf course itself. Those are things that we need to have those discussions to give it some teeth.
Good luck.
We moved in about 4 or 5 years ago again because this was a golf course community. You keep talking about subsidizing for the golf course. If you're not selling the golf course, who are you subsidizing? Are you subsidizing it because you can't get the amount of money you want to sell the golf course to another golf course operator?
So the gentleman's question is why are we using the word subsidizing the golf course? Is it because we cannot get enough money for the golf course or whatever it is? The issue that you run into right now is the operation of the golf course is not a performing asset. A non-performing asset is, if you're in the business world, you have an asset that's not producing. It's underperforming. when you have an asset that's underperforming, it's hard to sell to somebody because somebody does not want to pick up an asset that has underperforms. So what happens is you come up with ideas to save that underperforming asset. All right, and as I was mentioning earlier, and those of you in the business world understand about how assets go, if you could take that underperforming asset and bring it to the black or, above, then at least you're in business and you continue on from a business standpoint. So then what happens is when you have this underperforming asset, you come up with different ideas to save that asset. What we have here is an offer or proposal to save that asset, which is the golf course. By doing so is those two areas where we believe is the least amount of impact of the impacts around the golf course itself. And we believe the proceeds from that will allow the golf course to continue on in return. That's why we mentioned about, in good faith, putting out a deed restriction. Because, we don't have to offer the deed restriction and just say we just want to do the home to save the golf course. But in this instance, what we wanted to do is offer the deed restriction in good faith, regardless if you agree to disagree, that's in good faith. But that's way more than what other golf courses have been willing to offer that have run in these issues in Southern Nevada.
Are there any golf course operators out there that are interested in buying this property right now, or is it just out of the financial realm?
With currently today, from the discussions that you have from potential buyers, this thing's been on the market for a while, and what happens is you start having conversations with interested parties. When they start taking a look at the course itself and looking at some of the conditions, the golf course potential buyer is not interested in paying for a golf course that they believe will underperform. So you're not going to buy an asset that does not make any money, and so that's where we're trying to figure out how we can show them that this is going to be a performing asset.
So there are currently or not currently any potential buyers?
Let me answer that because it's kind of tricky. The question is are there currently any buyers out there? The black and white answer is no. There is no buyer that has a letter of intent ready to buy the golf course. Are there people who are sniffing underneath the rocks and trying to figure out if they can come in here and buy the golf course? Absolutely yes. Okay? So there are people exploring. But believe me, golf course conversions in the United States is one of those new flavor of the months. Okay? There are a lot of people that are coming in. And to give you a little bit of my background, I've been involved in the last 2 years with about 7 or 8 golf courses that you know or don't know of that are looking to reconvert or transform from a golf course to residential. So there are people out there. There are private equity groups that are coming into Southern Nevada looking for these underperforming assets, coming in to buy, looking to take out the golf course, hold out, and threaten to do residential based on my closing the golf course. Again, that is what's happening out there. You can read it on the internet, you can go through, do your homework, but that's what's happening. So there is some interest, but there's only an interest level once when it's appetizing for somebody to come in to purchase.
Hi, my name is Sandy. I'm a homeowner here. First of all, why did you guys buy the golf course knowing that you're going to disturb all these people's lives and just come in and just do what you want to do, and then you're telling us, ha, 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 you guys don't have any way of refuting what we're saying. We can't even come back and say, we want our golf course. We don't have a say in this.
So the question is why did you buy the golf course when you didn't want the golf course? That was a part of the previous builder. I forgot the owner. Dunhill. I'm sorry, Dunhill. Dunhill, this was part of their asset, and when Dunhill was bought out by Century Communities, this came with it. And in the business world, when you buy a portfolio, not everything in that portfolio is the best thing, but that's part of the negotiations where Dunhill were no longer going to be operating as a business, and this was a part of their portfolio of assets. Now, respectfully, the second part of the question is then why are you standing here today and saying, here we are now telling you that you're not going to have the golf course because we control, or you said whatever. Look, if we wanted to play that game, it's vicious out there on these golf courses, okay? There's a lot of things that go on out there where people go. I'm going to use Silverstone. Guy buys, I think one of the gentlemen mentioned it earlier, Silverstone Golf Course outside by my house up in the Northwest. They bought it. The next day they closed the golf course and said, sit with me and let's go cut a deal so I can do residential. Otherwise, golf course shut down. Golf course is ugly. It's under litigation. It's not good. That's what we could do potentially. I'm not saying we are going to do that, okay? So what I want to clarify, and I may not be doing a good job doing it, there is no standing up here saying you guys aren't guaranteed a golf course, okay? That is not it. What I'm trying to give you are the facts, because there's a lot of emotion here tonight, and I get it. If I'm on the other side and I didn't really read all the documents, my belief is, generally speaking, you buy a golf course, that's a golf course, okay? The fact of the matter is, what I've learned over the last 5 to 10 years, that is not the facts, okay? You need to look into your documents and find out, are there deed restrictions on the property that prevent it from changing? Is there zoning issues and contingencies and so on? So respectfully, regardless how much you dislike me tonight or Rick, I don't want to give the impression, hopefully I haven't, that you got to take this or leave it. It's just we're coming up with a proposal in good faith to say, hey, help us help you, to give you some comfort and help us also so we could get this thing done. So that's really what it is. And if I didn't come off that way, I apologize. But I do not want to go mock anybody in the room here and say, you thought you had a golf course, now you don't. Because we want to keep the golf course, okay? I want to make that clear. The golf course we want to keep. If we didn't, we'd come in, I guess one of the rumors, with 800 homes on the whole golf course or whatever it is. Don't want to play that game. Want to come in and tell you what we believe is rational to make the deal work and make it a win-win.
But it says in our zoning, in our laws, that it's zoned for this, it's zoned for that. But I'm from LA, and we bought here for no traffic, the ambiance of this place, and you're going to wreck the view coming in here to where now all I see is homes. The greenery is going to be gone. And the second thing is with your HOA, does it take you 20 minutes to get in the front gate? It does here. I can park all the way down at Vaughn's during rush hour traffic or on Saturday because I can't get through the one-lane gate for owners. And you're standing up here going, you know what, guys, you bought into this. You knew this was this. Where in my paperwork does it say you're going to have to wait 20 minutes to get home at your own front gate? Seriously? And you're downplaying it. You're standing up here saying it's only 32 homes. That's not many homes. You've got a husband, a wife driving, and possibly 2 kids driving. So multiply your 32 times probably 5, and yet you're sitting up here saying, well, that's okay. It's not that many people. That's so wrong.
I agree with our neighbors here that are opposed to the development. I don't see the reason that we have to have a deed restriction trade-off to develop this. Why can't we as a neighborhood have a deed restriction, go before the county commissioners, and restrict the sale of the without this?
So let me explain something right here on a question before you go, yes, this is the best thing that we should do is Clark County, the government does not want to deal with private party issues, okay? The government is not going to force anybody to enter into a private deed restriction. Private party, it's a private party versus a private party. So you can do what you want. Even if we didn't make a proposal here, respectfully, there is no way that you can come in, and I mean this, this is what it is you cannot force another private property owner to do a deed restriction on their property. You cannot do that. I mean, you could have a negotiation, and your next door neighbor could deed restrict the property based off those discussions, but you cannot enforce or require someone to do a deed restriction just because.
Okay, the next question I have is how long has Century owned the property?
The question is how long the Century Communities own the property. It's been about 2.5 years.
4 years? Okay. Yeah, I know.
Oh, 2013, I'm sorry, it's 4 years. Math is off, okay?
I've lived here since the beginning. A lot of our neighbors remember the 4th of July fireworks we had when we first moved in. I've been here since the day one, 1998. I've been selling real estate here. A lot of my clients are very concerned about their property values. Resale factors, people that are thinking about buying now, they're waiting to see what happens with this, with this debate. Oh, can you hear? Okay, you hear me better? I'm concerned about property values. Being a realtor with some of my other real estate agents here, the property values in Rhodes Ranch are adversely affected by this. The beginning, when you come into Rhodes Ranch, besides the traffic, that's the crown jewel hole. The third hole, the water hole, is our featured hole. And people gather there, they stroll their babies, they walk their dogs. You're talking about the main entrance to Rhodes Ranch. It's like having a broken nose or a black eye or something. That's the main feature, the crown jewel of Rhodes Ranch that we're talking about, negotiating. I think there must be a mutual ground that Century homes can come about to bring the revenue they need without taking that away. Like there should be some alternatives. Have you any alternatives?
What was your end question?
Well, because it's going to impact the property values and it's going to impact the most significant features of the golf course, I thought as a body that we're here to support Rhodes Ranch and keeping it the way it is, that perhaps something other than developing homes there could be put on the table. A win-win situation.
I'm going to try to paraphrase your questions I've heard in and out over trying to listen. So I believe your question is where we have the homes today, you prefer not to have any homes at all. I understand that. But the part of the question is, and I'm going to jump to the next step, is do the home proposals of those areas in yellow, do they have to be there? Can it be somewhere else? I know you don't want them anywhere, okay? I get it, I hear it, all right? But I want to jump to the next part, okay? And so the next part is, does it have to be in those two areas? The answer is no, okay? In those two areas are areas that we looked at as you look at through the whole golf course to try to make it the best situation. But the best situation may not be the best situation for you, but that was something that we put there. So there's nothing that says we have to be at this specific location, but we believe, going through the whole golf course, that this is probably the best of all the scenarios.
Like, an example might be that we as homeowners could buy the property, and don't get mad, but if we just raise the dues $5 a month, and we owned it and controlled it to keep it where it is, over 9,000 homes, that's a lot of money. Maybe everybody wins.
Yeah, the question is, and I've been waiting for this question all night. so the question is why can't we as homeowners put our money together and go buy the golf course? Okay? That is always an alternative, and that's an avenue you can look at. That's not something that we would put together, but to put it out there, because I figured this was going to come up at some point in time, because they always come up in these kind of meetings on the golf courses, and there's always people who want to put money together and put something together because they want to own and operate a golf course. That option's available if somebody wants to sit down and really talk seriously.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Paul. I've been in the community. I bought a golf course home 15 years ago, so I've been here quite a while. It sounds to me that everything I've heard you say so far is you're looking for a win-win situation here, which is obviously you have to generate revenue, so that's your win, and then our win is to get the deed restriction, which is going to protect the golf course. I waited in line for an hour, and you just commented on what I came up to speak on, which is, if you look at the value of a home, And right now, I'm sure you'll agree that a golf course view home is worth more money or sells for a greater dollar amount than a non-golf course view home. So why not consider taking over the existing driving range, have your ingress and egress from between the first and second hole, then you're going to have homes that line the 9th fairway, won't impact anybody's views as they're driving around. You'll have a cul-de-sac. You'll have the other homes lining the first fairway. You've got, I don't know how many homes you could put in there, maybe not 32, but the dollar amount with maybe 13, 14 million you're looking at would probably be generated by the better properties, and you're not going to impact anything. Now, you will impact golfers to a certain degree because we won't have a range, but there's a lot of courses, if you're looking at all the best case scenarios, where that would probably be the least impactful for the majority of the people. There's a lot of people that live in here that aren't golfers. I mean, I'm a golfer. It will impact me because I have a membership and I go and I use the driving range. But if you look at the alternative between putting it where you're proposing or taking over the driving range, I would think in a heartbeat that would be the least impactful, maximize your profits, and a true win-win for the community.
So what I'm going to do here is, the question is, I'm going to paraphrase, is why don't you look at, as I started before, putting the proposed development where the golf driving range is. And we actually had a discussion with the golf course architects and the management company and so on, but I'm gonna screw this up, so I'm going to give it to Rick, and Rick's going to give you the answer to that, and that can be something, and I'm putting words in Rick's mouth before we start, is something we could look at again, okay? But I want Rick to explain why they've already looked at it.
So that was initially our first thought as well, right? That would be the easiest location to look at modifying the course. The problem with that is that the interested parties that want to operate the course, as well as the golf course experts that we spoke with, all said that the driving range was a key towards the long-term viability of the course because it generates revenue. They were very worried about taking that approach. Again, we thought that would be the easy potential fix for that, and we got the complete opposite from everybody that we spoke to that was national golf course operators, national golf course architects as well. And they felt that that was a way to make sure that they could operate and generate revenue as well.
There are a lot of golf courses in town that don't have a driving range that you can literally hit into a net. Valley High is one. I believe your sister property, Reflection Bay, is another. It's not the end of the world. And I think you'll get a lot less resistance from everyone involved in this. And again, when we look for a true win-win, there's got to be a give and take on both sides. And I think in this situation, you're still going to make the same amount of money you're going to make. It's not going to impact the community. I mean, as far as the visually and aesthetically, and I get it. I live very close to where this is happening, and it's concerning. But at the end of the day, if I were you, I would really revisit that. And I think if you came back with that, I think you get a lot less resistance because it's a lot less impactful for the community.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We'll take that down and look at that. So thank you. I appreciate that.
The acoustics is very bad. So maybe I'll just... Can you hear me?
No.
How many of you are homeowners? How many of you oppose Century 21 development?
Yeah, that's why we're all here.
So you have expressed your views as individual homeowners. Do we have a homeowners association that governs this community?
It means nothing.
So why don't we empower the homeowners association to oppose this? We are not lawyers, right?
They control
but our homeowners association have a lawyer.
They are the control it.
Okay, sir, can you ask the question so we can get moving here? You got other neighbors? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth, and I've been here since 1994, and longer than you guys. If I may understand, just for the record, you are the lawyer for the developer.
Yes, the question is, am I the lawyer for the developer? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and he is representing the builders.
And Rick Barron is with Century Communities, yes.
And he is also a lawyer, right?
No. I don't think Rick wants to be a lawyer. I think Rick's an engineer, and that's right. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. My question is, my family has been here. We have numbers of houses in this community because of the ambience and the greens. We came from the Bay Area. My question is, since you are a builder, have you ever thought of having marketing or promotions to sell the golf course to have more profits to come? Not to sell by different owner, but to generate income and not to go in developing homes just like what you're doing right now, you're proposing right now.
So I believe the question is have you looked at other options in finding ways to increase revenue for the golf course through marketing, etc., offers, specials, and so on? One of the things that Century Communities has done is, number one, they've hired a broker who's a specialist in this area. Number two, they've spoken to golf course operators throughout the country, major consultants who are familiar with the golf course, and looked at every which way that you could help increase those revenues to help save the golf course. So those avenues have been explored. As I started earlier, I said, look, there's a lot of avenues that have been discussed since the property has been up for sale, and a lot of discussions with a lot of experts across the country to help give input to see what you can and cannot do to save the golf course and allow the golf course to continue on. So we've explored those avenues as far as different ways to increase the revenue, yes.
I'm sorry, but I beg to disagree. Since you are in the business of marketing homes, I don't see any reason why you cannot market the golf course instead of building homes. My second question was, we as the homeowners, you said, we have the say to contradict what you want to happen in this community. May I ask, what is the percentage, the voting percentage of we, the homeowners, to go against you guys?
So I can understand that you mentioned about the say, that you do have say in a zoning and land use process.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and then your question is, I'm sorry, because I'm hearing, it's echoing in here, so I'm trying to...
The voting percentage of the homeowners, what is our percentage to go against you guys?
Oh, okay. So the question is what is the presentation, or what can you do as homeowners to do to fight what we're proposing? There is a process. This is the first step. The first step is, even though it's not required, we come out as a developer to meet with the community to explain what we would like to do. Right now, there's nothing that's been submitted to Clark County. If there's an application that's submitted to Clark County to move forward with some kind of development on the golf course, the community will get a neighborhood notice, okay? That notice will tell you that there will be what is known a town board hearing. This is located in Spring Valley. It's also Enterprise too. Yeah, so I need to correct myself if I'm wrong. I think there's two town boards that cover Rhodes Ranch. One is Spring Valley Town Board and the other one's Enterprise. You'll get notice of that meeting, and then at that meeting is where you go to that town board meeting and express your opposition, your support, your concerns for a proposed development. After that meeting, there is either a planning commission meeting down at the county government building, or it will be at the Board of County Commission meeting at the same government building. That will be on a notice as you go through the process itself, as far as telling you when those public hearings and meetings are. And in those meetings, that's where you can go and speak in opposition, support, or address your concerns. So that's generally how the process works. I mean, there's some other nuances to it, but generally from about 100,000 feet above the ground, that's how that process works.
My last question is, I'm not saying it will happen that you will prosper with this project. What is our assurance as a homeowners that in the following years, it's not going to happen again? Because if this will be a precedent for you guys to put up these homes, what will happen for the next one? Because from Mr. Rhodes' group of companies to, what is the next one? Dunhill, and now you guys. What is our assurance that this will not ever happen? Do you see the traffic that is going on? If there is something that you need to improve, is the front gate. Because we have to go in and out, and it will take us 30 minutes. And now you're going to put new homes right after the entry where the first stop is. Do you see what's the problem with that?
Yeah, I understand your concern, yes.
I'm very disappointed. I know the builders and the developers. What you're after is your bottom line is the profit. And we, the homeowners, end up with problems. After you sell the properties, goodbye. We are the ones suffering. I hope you know that. And I hope you don't experience that kind of problem that you're going to give us now. Thank you.
I've kind of been out of action for a while as far as the association goes. I've been out of action for a while as far as the association goes. When I was originally a homeowner here, which was in '98, we were told that after a certain percentage of homes were built, that the controlling interest of the homeowners association would be held by the property owners. Does that not exist today?
Yeah, and the question is about the turnover of the HOA from the declarant over to the association. Under NRS 116, which is your HOA statute, there are thresholds of when there's a certain amount of homes that are sold in the community. I'm paraphrasing, that there is a turnover of the association at a certain period of time. There are other exceptions or nuances with that. I'm just giving you something general. But that's a question that one of the first gentlemen mentioned is I'm going to be addressing as we go through the issues that have been come up tonight with respect to the HOA control of the association.
Okay. Everything that you said, I still don't know. Is the homeowners association in control by the homeowners or not? That's all I'm asking.
What do you mean? For tonight? For as of now here? You have the declarant, which is Century Communities. We're talking. Go ahead.
If there was a vote today, and there are 5 members on the board, could 3 homeowners control the vote?
No.
Okay. Now, perhaps there is a mistake here, but I'm sure that as soon as the project was 75% built out, that the homeowners were supposed to take control of the board.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been out of this for a long time.
Yeah, so let's do this. I'm not an HOA attorney. I don't want to debate HOA issues. I've told you from the very first guy that stood up, I got the message that if there's anything to be a part of anything of a deal, that the HOA turnover is an important part of a deal point if that's going to happen. Okay, I could address the answer. That's the answer I give you. It's on my hit list here of things that are legitimately that I need to look at, and I promise you we'll have an answer for them.
Okay, next question.
Go ahead.
Can you make a deed restriction with an addendum that if you don't get your build out, the deed restriction is null and void?
I'm trying to make sure I answer your question of deed restriction. The key is the deed restriction is you want to make sure it has teeth. You want to be the beneficiary of the deed restriction itself, which means you want to be the party that enforces the deed restriction itself. I personally, and I'll tell you, would not want to have all these, if this happens and that happens, then you don't have the deed restriction. So if I'm in your shoes, whatever you just explained, I don't see that happening because nobody rationally would necessarily do something like that in this circumstance. But the bottom line is, that's why I mentioned earlier with the deed restriction, is we'd like to sit with a handful of neighbors and owners in here to figure out what you want in that so we can make sure it's addressed.
But that comes after you have your approval to build, correct?
No. That would be concurrently.
Concurrent?
Yeah, and again, I didn't think it out, but you'd want to do it concurrently. Nobody's going to give a deed restriction unless you have the entitlements. You're not going to want to approve any entitlements homes unless you have the deed restriction.
Also, as part of that deed restriction, could it be put in there that the homeowners have a first right to refusal on the purchase of the golf course? In other words, if you get a bid on the golf course, that we can band together as a community and buy the course for our community.
Those things are negotiable. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dana. I've lived here since 2000. We bought our home. I do not golf, but I walk that loop every single day. It took me 8 minutes and 29 seconds to get through the gate from Vaughn's when I was coming into this meeting. I didn't sign up for that. Questions for your next meeting. If in fact this happens, what are you going to do about traffic control at the gate? Because you're going to have tremendous amounts of traffic when you're building right at your entrance.
Yeah, great question. The questions about traffic control at the main gate. Currently, I know, and Rick's here, what I'm going to say is Century Communities has hired a traffic engineers, and looking at ways to improve that up at front at the gates there. So that's currently being explored to try to address that issue, yes.
Okay, because you're losing your beautification of your entrance and your gate, which is your selling point. So you're trying to sell homes, and you're losing your beauty right where people enter. That's just the point I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you.
Larry Rosenbush. Just a couple of questions. What's the price? What's the price on the golf course right now?
I don't have that information. I'm going to give you that information. I wrote that down for the price on the golf course. And so offers are being accepted, but in my understanding, there isn't a price. The offers are being discussed, but I will give you, somebody asked earlier, I wrote it down, the value of the golf course, so I'll get that information.
Was there a proposal to do what they did at Sienna here, where they started charging the homeowners a premium to keep the golf course?
No, the question is at Sienna Golf Course right now, I'll give you a little bit of background. The owner of the golf course is working with the HOA. The HOA is looking at a way to save the golf course. One of the offers out there and discussions that are out there is HOA may pay X amount of money per year to subsidize the landscaping maintenance requirements that are out there, certain percentage, et cetera, et cetera. So that I believe you're asking, has that been proposed here? The answer is no. Okay, but let me explain something to you. The reason why that has not been proposed is because this is the first meeting that we're having, and if that is something that the association would like to explore on the table, those things are always open for discussion, because you need to have HOA buy-in. And I get it. I understand. I'm familiar with the Sienna situation. So in the Sienna situation, you're looking for a way to, that's another way to subsidize the golf course, is by having the entire association pay for certain expenses, overhead, which a big cost is the maintenance of the golf course, which is a big number, but those things can always be negotiable in instead of building homes or whatever it is. And I'm using it lightly because I don't want you to walk out and he says, hey, we're not going to build homes if you do X, Y, and Z. The point is, this is the beginning of a long process. I hate to say long process to you. Nothing's going to get done in a week, okay, or a month. This is a long process, but I do want to point out and put it on the table that that is a valid question and a valid thing to explore, is where if you get some money from the association to pay for certain things, that's in the conversation. Again, that's something we did think of, okay? And one of the avenues I was explaining earlier is there's a lot of avenues you're trying to figure out how to make this work, but didn't want to stand up here tonight and say we didn't think it's the best avenue. We want to charge you X amount of money so we can maintain the golf course. Okay, so, but that's open. And we'll put that down, and when we talk to other people, that's something that could be discussed.
I think what you've heard loud and clear is most of the homeowners don't want the homes in. They don't want to lose the golf course. They don't want to lose the aesthetics, all those things. So, you know, water restrictions, making the golf course a little more desert to save some money on maintenance of the course. There's 1,000 things you guys can do rather than doing what you're proposing. Now, I've been here for a number of years myself, 20 years plus. I'm a big golfer. I'm not a big fan of what you're doing. I think there's other places you can do these things if you're talking about this, but I don't think all those avenues have been explored, you know, to the greatest extent. Rhodes Ranch, as you know, probably has the most grass in Las Vegas. So I'm not saying kill the golf course, but there's some areas that they could probably save some money on, some water restrictions. There's some things that could be done. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents. At least a voice in some of those other options.
No, and that's fine. Like the gentleman about 15, 20 minutes ago, making those suggestions. This is where the meeting like this is beneficial. You know, looking at developing on the driving range, looking at having the HOA subsidized. Look, it's, again, whatever you want to define win-win as, it could be anything, but the thing is something that could be acceptable to keep the golf course for the preservation.
Do you guys have a drop-dead date of when this may or may not occur, or a vote on this, or whatever the next step is?
Yeah, the question is there a drop-dead date? Not necessarily. I mean, things change, you know, as you go through. You know, an offer could come tomorrow, you know, that we could just scrap all this and it's done. It's a process, I was just explaining earlier. The way I look at it is there's going to be more meetings and more discussions. Yeah, this is just the beginning. And hopefully for all of us, it doesn't take years as other places. You don't get a resolution. But like I said, the facts and where we're at today is way better than what I've seen in other golf course scenarios. So, but that's me being optimistic. So.
My name is Anthony DeFries.
Yes.
And I'm going to speak to you and everybody who's still in the crowd. And thank you everybody for staying, because you guys are definitely the ones that care about what's happening in this community. As everybody, I'm sure, that was here, but my family's been here since 1998. I've been here since 99. I've acquired 5 properties in that time frame. My parents have 11 properties here, so our family really is for what's in the best interest of this community. But what I really want to point out is that we need to fight and we need to look for a win-win here. Okay, I appreciate everybody's need to fight and make sure that nothing, because everybody hears rumors and stories of what's happening to all the other golf courses in Las Vegas. But the fact of the matter is that they don't have to do anything. They don't have to put a deed restriction on this. They could let the golf course just die if they want. So what we need to focus our attention on is how it's going to make it best for the community. Not just fight just because we want to fight. Let's fight for what counts and what makes a difference. We need to form a committee that will oversee and have some sort of a say in what they're doing before it happens. I think taking control of the HOA is #1 priority. And that's what we really need to fight for. Like that was the first speaker who came up to this podium today. The next thing is we should form some kind of a bond to where a builder is in business to make profits. We're all, whatever we do, wherever we work, we need to make money. And that's why they're here, okay? Personally, I don't think that they can develop the entire golf course because of the lack of ingress and egress, which is the problems we have at the gate. So I think that this is something that they're attempting to do because it's their best option. So if we can put a deed restriction for 100 years, 50 years, whatever it is, that would be in our best interest. And if we could maybe use some of the profits that they're going to make from building these homes, let's estimate $400,000 per home times 32 homes. I think it's about $12.5 million. And I don't know the exact profit margin, but let's say they make $7 to $8 million out of that. If we can use that to expand the gate on Durango and make an extra lane, maybe an extra guard shack to where it's easier to get in, that's what we should be fighting for. Not just no, no, no. Let's look at the overall picture, make some good suggestions, have people appointed who actually have the time, the energy, and the willpower to make sure that everything goes the way it's supposed to. I'm sure there's plenty of people here that would be open to that job. And make it a win-win situation. Okay? Form a board overseeing the creation of the deed restriction to make sure that it can't be taken away within a certain period of time, maybe a change of ownership. We all want to make sure that there's not a Trojan horse here, and that's why everybody came in and started booing from the beginning, because everybody has this idea that developers are bad. But if it weren't for developers, none of us would be here in the first place anyway. I remember my father and I fighting for this community center before it opened, and I'm sure you do too. So, but now look what exists here. It's a beautiful place, and that's why we all love it, and that's why we're all fighting for it. But let's make it a win-win. If we can put homes there, if we can maybe turn the driving range, I thought that was an unbelievable idea too. If we can turn the driving range, maybe, I don't know if that would work. I couldn't hear what your answer was, why that didn't work. But the people who are really going to be affected here are the people on Cascade? On Cascade Lake. Maybe we could use some of the money from what they're going to make on the homes, or develop some kind of a fund to where the people who are going to have their views, those are really the only ones that are going to be significantly affected by this, are the people on Cascade Lake and Chateau Whistler. The corner of Chateau Whistler that had like some kind of city views on that 2.2 acres, and on Cascade. Did I turn it off? You hear me? And on Cascade Lake, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 homes that it's going to be right smack dab in front of their golf course view. So, all of you that are here, you're the last ones here because you really care. We should all persuade our fellow homeowners to make the best out of this situation. Impose the deed restriction. A deed restriction means that you cannot develop the golf course anymore. That's what it is. So that's why they're imposing this. Now, if they sell it to somebody else, they can sell it to somebody else. And now we're going to have to fight somebody else who's not a developer of the community as it is right now. So that could open up another can of worms. Let's work and make this a win-win situation. Let them build some homes so they get what they want. And we impose the deed restriction to where 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, we still have our community. And last thing, as a real estate agent, if they're selling homes at that value, it's going to bring up our values. Okay? I mean, at $385,000 to $500,000, I don't know what the price, I didn't do the price per square foot because I didn't know the square footages of the sales prices, but it will actually bring up our values when you have comparable sales that are selling for that price per square foot. Thank you.
My name's Brian. I've been here 7 years. I'm using your words here. You say you want to save the course, subsidize the course. You're going to make roughly $17 million on this project. How much of that's going to go to subsidize the course?
So his question is from the financial side of what those numbers are. I don't know what those numbers are as far as perform on that, so I can't answer that.